Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird here from Largo, Florida, reaching for my water. I just had to do a quick sprint to put my dog up. We got a shirtless Dr. Stillman in the background making his morning smoothie. He waves. I had to put Rommel up because he was chewing a giant marrow bone in the background. And one time on the live, we had him chewing his Kong in the background with the audio of this crunch, crunch, crunch the whole time. So we had to put him inside. But a little change of scenery this morning. It's cloudy, overcast. It's actually quite cool here this morning. We had some really good thunderstorms. And if you've ever been to Florida, especially here, if you can go down to the beach and watch some of these thunderstorms roll in, it's pretty awesome. The lightning show that gets put on. But I will tell you, the best lightning I've ever seen was in Tucson. I've never seen such a light show. I used to go out in Tucson and just watch they have a rainy season there, or monsoon season. And the lightning is just awesome. So you've ever been out to Arizona and check that out. It's pretty cool. So today, if you go down in the links, there's a link to the Thyroid Secrets that'll take you to an email sequence that'll take you to where you can register for the webinar. And also you can buy the thyroid course we just released. You can check that out.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, good morning. Simple tips to improve your health. And I remember when Dr. Stillman and I first started working together, we were out at dinner, I think, and we were basically chatting about, Dr. Stillman was talking about some of the things he was frustrated with. And one of them was, no matter who the patient is, a lot of times I end up speaking to these people about the same things over and over and over again.
And over.
And over
again.
And he was frustrated. Good morning, Dave. Good to see you. Really appreciate you signing in and making sure that we're doing things optimally or close to optimally. Not Dr. Stillman clean, but close enough. So we were chatting and he asked me, because I've been doing this for like 25 years. He's like, does that ever change? And I'm like, it doesn't. Like in my strength and conditioning in my gym, people that I trained for 20 years, you think that you would have to stop coaching them, but you had to remind them the basics over, whether it was, movements, whether it was, lifestyle, sleep. Most of these people would get in trouble and you'd be like, start asking them questions like, oh, I got under a lot of stress. I started drinking. My sleep isn't very good. So that's essentially why we created the fundamentals of wellness and why we've integrated coaching into the medical side of the practice and created a whole coaching practice. Because a lot of the people that come to us, they don't need a medical side. They just need to do the basics, and that's going to fix all the medical stuff. Even though we can't claim that, but that's what happens, right? Like I have tons of people that I worked with. I wasn't treating their issue, but all the lifestyle changes we made, managed their diabetes, managed their autoimmune disease, whatever it is. So that's why we basically created that, because I've noticed with even working with professional athletes, high level achievers, and you've noticed working with these same people, very few people are doing these 5 fundamental habits consistently and actually really doing them, right? They'll say, I know that, but then you'll ask, are you actually doing it? Or they'll say, I eat good. Well, what does that mean? And then they basically it goes to hell after that. Or I'm not stressed. And then we look at their data.
Yeah.
But essentially, the 5 fundamental habits are walk outside 3 times a day, preferably after meals for 10 minutes. Morning session, most important. Eat a protein at every meal. Most people, if they get 0.7 per pound of body weight, that's a great start. A palm or if you're lifting, a fistful is good. Drink high quality water, preferably spring water. Get the lights off at night. And then the often overlooked social life, community connection. I remember in the book, The Great Cholesterol Myth, they talk about a mining town in Pennsylvania that they studied, where they all smoked, they all drank, they worked in these mines, and they had a much lower rate of heart disease and everything than everywhere else in the country. And they determined that the factor was they had such a strong sense of community and such a strong, like, no one was living isolated. Everybody, they went out and did stuff together. Everybody felt like they were part of a community. And so I think that's a part that a lot of people leave out in this formula. So there's my rant.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so It's funny, we picked this topic because it's trending. We like to stay on top of what's trending because it's important to capture people's attention and wake them up to reality. Because what we see happening in the health and wellness info space is that people are looking for simple, quick tips. But what ends up happening is they fall into these content webs that are all aimed at marketing them just basically gimmicks and shiny baubles and temporary solutions. And the thing is that these things have never changed. They're very hard to monetize. And that means that the best things you can do don't get any press. They don't get any advertising dollars. They don't get any, they're often left behind when it comes to the reporting. And people get this terrible myopia that we see and we struggle with in coaching them all the time of, well, I just need to do this and I just need to do that. And, it's funny. One of the patients who I think is one of our biggest fans, she flies across the country with her family to see us. The first interaction between her and Jim, I'll never forget, because she said, I know all this stuff. I've heard all about it. I've read all about it. She's done all the courses. She's taken all the different types of supplements and tried all the different types of fancy biohacks. And yet she's not well. And Jim, I'll never forget Jim saying to her, but are you doing it? And she wasn't. And that's one of the reasons why we created the course and we added coaching. And that's one of the things that, tips to improve your health. The top 5 fundamentals are critical, but the thing about them is that people don't want to do them. They fall off the wagon and they don't do them. And so you actually do need coaching and accountability in order to get and stay on that wagon. And a lot of it ends up being troubleshooting. People are, going through life and they hit a roadblock, and instead of figuring out a way around it, they don't have time. They're too busy. They have too much going on.
Paralysis by analysis.
Sometimes it's paralysis by analysis, but for example, and you and I constantly are looking at this, right? We're constantly asking questions like, why did I stay up? I didn't do this last night, but this is just an example from recent history. Sure. Why did I stay up last night for an extra 20 minutes scrolling through reels on Instagram?
Right.
Well, I figured out that it was because I was having my, last phone call of the night too late. And I said, okay, my last phone call of my night is going to be 8:30. And at 8:30, the phone's going into airplane mode and that's it.
Yep.
And now the 8:30 to 10:30 slot in my schedule, I might do something on the computer. I'm more likely to do something like take a sauna, which helps me sleep. Not all of you, by the way, will improve your sleep with sauna late in the night or late in the day.
For me, it's too big of a stress. It actually wakes me up.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important for people to understand. We tried to pack as much value and truth and reality into the course as we could, but this is where coaching becomes so critical, is that we're able to actually take your data and your experience and say, okay, well, this is what you need to do, right? So whether it's, staying on your phone too late or not having a social life the way you wish you did, or, little things that I didn't realize were stopping me. Like, for example, I didn't used to go to the gym at all. I hated going to the gym because whenever I would do things like lift heavy weights, my back would hurt. I would be really, really sore, and I didn't understand what kind of load I should be using, how much I had to do in order to gain muscle and become stronger. And then, what changed my behavior. Jim and I, split a house here in Florida. We would go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. We still do. And he showed me how to work out in a way that didn't destroy my body and didn't make me feel terrible and gain muscle mass. And he also clued me into the things that I didn't even know I had to do in order to actually respond well to the exercise. I needed to change the way I was eating, the way I was preparing my meals, the ingredients I was adding to my diet. We see so many people, like Jim was saying, who say, I eat good, or I eat a perfect diet. I mean, oh my gosh, I heard this one patient once who just said, oh, I eat a perfect diet. I mean, that just makes me want to bang my head against the wall, because then they send me their photos or they send me their log and I say, yes, you're eating high quality foods, but you're not eating enough of this, or you're not eating enough of that. Or what do you mean you eat,
Greek yogurt, carrot sticks, then I have a shake. Kind
of the most typical, but we've seen the craziest stuff. Like, I remember having this patient, I told him to eat some more nuts and seeds. So what does he do? He goes out and he buys a bag of nuts and seeds, and he comes back to me and he says, I can't eat nuts and seeds. They make my stomach hurt. And I said, well, what did you eat? How much did you eat? And how did you prepare it? It was like roasted or raw cashews, maybe with salt. He ate like 5 cups. was like,
Of course.
are you kidding me? Like
The
5
cashew
cups of
monster.
cashews would make me feel sick too. So I was like, listen, I want you to grab a handful or like a little handful, and I want you to start there. And I don't want you to eat them raw. I want you to throw them into a soup or a stew, and I want you to cook them in a meat broth with some vegetables and some simple starches like rice or potatoes. And he was able to tolerate nuts and seeds after that. And I just patients never cease to amaze me with the stuff that they do. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. It's so funny the things that we'll do, and we're like, oh, that didn't work for me. And then someone's like, well, did you try it this way? And you're like, gosh, I didn't try it that way. I guess I'll try it that way. And that's what Jim and I are really here to help you to do. And we're here to help you have fun doing it. So,
So Roderick, one of the things I don't know if you're talking about
for the listeners, let's read the comments.
Pardon me. Oh yeah. Roderick asked, how do you approach people who go into cognitive dissonance when you start telling them they need to change lifestyle, EMF avoidance, and diet? I really don't have this issue because I'm not trying to go out and evangelize people, right? I will talk to people. I will ask them questions to get them kind of spinning in their head a little bit. And then if they ask me questions, then I will basically, engage. But when people came to, I didn't have to do any advertising in Lexington because I did such a great job and got great results. People came and came to me, and people come to Dr. Stillman specifically for a problem. So in that case, you then become the mentor, and then it's a matter of educating and then giving them what they can handle. Like, you don't want to dump, like, you got some little old lady, or you got a woman, a young woman who's got 3 or 4 kids. Like, the first thing, you don't lead with 5G. Like, that's just not, like, you lead with, like, are you going outside? Are you getting time to yourself? You lead with the simple stuff, and you get a little buy-in, and then they do that. And then, oh, wow, I started eating more protein. I feel so much better. I started going outside. I feel so much better. What's next? Right. And then it's like, you got to be careful. You don't verbally, it's just like training someone. Like, I'm not going to take a beginner in and do some really complicated circuit when they need to really build a foundation. And we've got so much information out there, all these protocols, all these people, fasting and this and peptides and HRT. And we want to start people where they are and then just slowly build and layer on that. And, I had clients that it took a year or two for them to really buy into what I was selling. Right. And so it takes time, and you've got to build relationships with these people. And that's why coaching is so great, because you're getting constant interaction. It might take someone 4 to 6 months to realize that stress is their number one problem and that they actually need to do something about it. It might take someone a year to figure out the root cause of their problem, why they're self-sabotaging themselves, is because they don't have a good relationship with themselves. Right.
Yeah, we talked
a lot
about
of people.
A great case on blood pressure this week. Was that yesterday, Jim? That was
yesterday.
We talked about how somebody took 6 or 7 or 8 months to take Jim's advice seriously, and they did. And pow, they're off all of their meds now, Jim.
Yeah, she's off. She's off them all. She's off, and it's had a significant impact on her HRV or overall health. Right. And I could list off 40, 50, 60 people that it took 6 months to a year. Like, if you go back and listen to some of my old podcasts that I did on Body IOFM, the one particular with Rachel Matthews, she literally was like, when I first met you, I thought you were insane, but she's like, I came to the gym, you didn't destroy me. I started feeling better because we adjusted her training, make it appropriate. And then she's like, I started talking to the other girls, and the other girls who had bought in, like, yeah, he's not nuts. Like, I actually did this stuff and it actually helped. Right. So that's why having a community, and we have this happen on the question and answers too. We'll have somebody who's really frustrated, and a lady will get on there and go, I know this is nuts, but these simple things that they're suggesting, it helped me lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks. You just have to do it.
Yesterday, Jim wasn't on the call with me in the medical side of things, but we had a number of people who were just saying, look, I feel so much better with what you told me to do over the last few months. And a lot of times it was just simple stuff. Yeah. And these are people who, they'd been chasing their health for years. They'd fallen down into a rut. They were sick. They were trying to get out of it. It was impacting their ability to work, their ability to think, their ability to have relationships, their ability to do life. Yeah. And we see it all the time. And they start with the wrong things. They chase the wrong things. And it's a constant dance to get them to focus on what really matters.
Yeah.
And, Roderick, to your point or your question, what I really ask people if they're in a group call with me or if we're in a one-on-one, and for people who are curious to know more about what I do and what we do in the practice, you can actually go book a meet and greet with me if you go to my Substack blog, there's links to book meet and greets with me, usually at the top of every email I send out. And what I've found is that I just ask them, how's that working out for you? I don't say it that way because it's kind of rude, but they're coming to me for a reason. And they'll say, well, I've been doing this and this and this and this. And I'm like, well, is it getting you the results that you want? Well, no.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to do this? Well, no. Well, why do you think that is? Well, I just need to do more of this, this, and this. Well, are you sure about that? Well, I don't know, and get people into that state of cognitive dissonance, because cognitive dissonance is the feeling you get when you doubt what you're doing is working. And that's, the first step in finding out something else that's going to work better, or going back, checking your math and making sure that you are indeed correct. Because it's okay. I've had times where I thought, am I doing this? Is my approach what it should be? Should I be using a different method, different test? Should I be ordering this, ordering that?
You don't ever do that.
I know, right? I'm constantly iterating what I do because I see and find new things, because the world of integrative natural medicine is just so big. It's so big. And one of the great things that having a practice like I have has afforded me is the ability to run so many lab tests on people and then see so many people. Most docs are running from room to room, seeing one patient at a time. They're distracted by their overhead. They're distracted by their staffing costs. They're distracted. If there's one thing that I see in the functional medicine world, it's that doctors are over ordering tests. They're over recommending supplements. They're under recommending lifestyle changes. They're not holding patients accountable. They're not spending their time educating them on how to, we'll go into a group coaching call and somebody will say, look, I really don't want to take as many supplements as I'm taking. And I'll walk them through how to do what they're doing now with a half a dozen supplements with 2 or 3 dietary modifications. And it's really profoundly impactful for them, because all of a sudden, they're not spending money on supplements. And I have no problem with supplements. I use them all the time, right? I'm taking 5 or 6 myself right now as part of a protocol. But I'm also testing basically what I need with that. It's part of my basically business development, practice development. I test everything on myself before I recommend it to patients. It's part of why, Jim and I are both, Jim turned me on to neurofeedback a few weeks or months ago.
Yeah.
And I've been going through that, and it's really powerful. It's really great. And I'm excited to start writing more about it at my Substack on how it's helped me and how I think it will help people so they can get the help they need from it. But, you have to constantly be iterating. And that's what I try to get people into in the cognitive dissonance. Well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Well, I don't think that'll work for me. Well, why not? I've seen it work for people like you before. Why do you think it wouldn't work for you? Oh, well, I don't believe that. Why don't you believe that? One of the most dangerous statements or questions I like to ask people is, how do you know that? Because they'll say things like, well, we know that this is safe and effective. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I say, well, how do you know that this is safe and effective? How do you know that? And they'll say, well, I read it, or it was in this paper, it was in this big mainstream news article. And I'm like, well, why do you believe that's true? And they say, well, because. And I'm like, well, have you ever thought about how many times we've been wrong about things like that in the past? Like
cigarettes are great for your health.
Cigarettes, DDT, thalidomide. There's a laundry list of big mistakes we've made in the history of medicine. That's one reason. I cover that a lot in my book, actually. I cover how doctors get things so wrong. And it's okay that doctors get things wrong. We're human. You're human. We all make mistakes. But understanding how we make mistakes is actually the first step on the road to making fewer mistakes and getting better results. So I wrote about that in my book, Dying to Be Free, available at Amazon.com. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and actually the audiobook on that should be getting done here soon. Yeah. Thanks to Mr. David. But when in doubt, I've found that the majority of the time it's slow down and simplify. That's essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people we attract are so type A that there's got to be something I can do. There's got to be a supplement I can take. There has to be something. And a lot of times it's like, slow down, simplify. Condense your training, simplify your training, figure out exactly what you need to improve at. Is the program you on actually giving the results that you want? That's one of the things that I do is, other than hitting people with the 5 fundamentals, is what are your goals? Or is your goal just to look good naked and look good and feel good? Well, then you don't need to train like Rocky Balboa from Rocky 4. And you don't need to train like you're getting ready to go to Buds. Like that you don't have to train that way, right?
Basic
Even if
underwater
you were going to
demolition
do,
school
even
for
if you
those of
were
who
going to
are
do
not
that,
hip
I
with
wouldn't
the
take
SEAL
that
lingo.
approach. Pardon me.
I was just saying, you used Buds casually, like all of our people like know what Buds is. Buds is basic underwater demolition school. It's the entry SOF selection, Special Forces Operations selection process for the Navy SEALs.
Right. And basically what they're trying to do is see who they can break. That's essentially what Buds is. And so there's a difference between testing and training and developing. And a lot of people in the fitness industry are using workouts for testing instead of using workouts for long-term development, right? And building a foundation and taking your time.
Yeah.
And I get into that in my strength training course that I'm constantly updating in the Fundamentals of Wellness. If you go in the link below, the course itself, if you just want to check the course out and see if you like it, you can get a 50% discount if you put in all caps 50, all caps 50% off. There's a link to the Fundamentals of Wellness with coaching. If you want to check that out, you can either use the code Jim or the code Stillman, all caps. That'll give you 10% off. That's a monthly thing. But if you get the course and then you decide you want to upgrade to the coaching, there is a discount in the link provided inside the course where you can upgrade to the coaching once you've gotten the Fundamentals of Wellness. But the cool thing is the Fundamentals of Wellness course has the strength training component in there. And I'm going to continually be building and upgrading and adding more content, particularly with the question and answers that I do. I have a specific strength and conditioning fitness Q&A this Saturday, actually, at 11 a.m.
Training with Jim Laird is life-changing. I put on 20 pounds of lean muscle in the last year. And the funny thing about that is a lot of 80-something percent of my...
Is there any other kind of muscle than lean muscle?
There sure is, Dr. Laird.
Is there? I don't know. I'm just asking. I've never heard I put on fatty
muscle. You're
muscle.
right. Lean muscle. Yeah. You're right. That is silly, isn't it? You can have fatty muscle, right? I mean, a ribeye is a fatty muscle, isn't it, Jim?
Well, that's a muscle with fat in it, not in the it's muscle, but there's fat.
I'm just over here pointing at the ribeye, saying there's fat in that muscle.
I'm just being facetious.
I know, but it is funny. You're right. That is kind of a funny little thing. But anyway, yeah, it's been so life-changing for me. He's taught me so much about breathing mechanics and respiratory mechanics, stuff I thought I knew that I didn't know. And I say that as somebody who's been on, go check it out. Some of the top podcasts in the field, sat down and broken bread with guys like Ben Greenfield, Dr. Joe Mercola, and I've read and learned a thing or two about breathing mechanics and exercise. And Jim taught me a lot of stuff I didn't know and made exercise fun for the first time in my life.
There's a ton of information out there, but how do you actually get the normal everyday person to actually get results?
Well, there's too much information.
It's way too much.
What's really valuable right now is actually having someone help you focus on exactly what you need to do right now to get the results that you want.
Right.
And that doesn't have to be some long, convoluted, boring, difficult, expensive, crazy boondoggle like we see so many people making it, right? I mean, how many people come to us and they're like, I don't actually ask people this because I get embarrassed by their answers, but people, and they get embarrassed, I can tell, but we'll have people come in and they're like, yeah, I've probably spent 10, 15 grand on supplements alone in the last year. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times the supplements and the peptides and all the fancy things they're on is actually what's causing the problems, because it becomes at a certain point, it becomes a stressor, right? If they've been on certain supplements for years and years and years, they've never cycled off them. They're not doing the fundamentals. If you start taking peptides and you don't have the resources to actually allow those peptides to do what they're supposed to do, or whether it's, you start taking testosterone and you're not getting enough protein and you're not taking care of yourself, you're just wasting money. So a lot of times we pull people back from, we had one guy was on, how many supplements was he on?
I don't even know.
In our executive wellness program. And a lot of them had like, you'll be on 5, 6, 7, 10 different supplements. And a lot of them have a lot of the same things in them. So he's on like super physiological doses of certain things. Then he was on this and on that. And we're like, we need to dial all this stuff back. We need to get you doing the basics, manage your stress. And then we started adding things in strategically. And guess what? He's like, well, this stuff actually works. and we actually know what works because, when you take 5,000 things, like, how do you know which one of those things is actually doing something positive?
Yeah,
And that's where you can use the Aura Ring, the HRV. When you do a new modality, you can actually see. Pardon me.
I was about to say that.
I know. I get it. We spent a lot of time together. You can actually see whether you're getting a positive result or a negative result. You want to hear one of my other swear words that I don't like is functional movement. We're going off on a tangent.
Why is this a word you don't like, Jim?
Name me a movement that isn't functional.
You got me.
Like, what does functional movement mean? Like,
you got me.
Yeah, just drop that. That's one of Bill. Like, if you ever go on a talk with Bill Hartman and you say the word functional movement, he'll just kind of he's got Bill. One of my main mentors, Bill Hartman, he's got a great podcast called Reconsider. And if you're kind of a dork like me, a meathead dork, your head will hurt when you watch it. But he's got this whole podcast about all the terms in fitness that he hates. And it's just great. It's funny. But so if you're kind of a dork like me, you'll enjoy that. But
it's great.
But yeah, the Aura Ring, being able to actually measure and see if something is effective, because over time, and that's the thing about it, is the basics will always work. But when you add some of these tools in, there's a reason why people cycle things. There's a reason why people change their training from time to time.
Yes.
Because things will stop working over time, right? So you need to be able to measure that and adapt.
Another way that, to what Roderick asked us earlier about cognitive dissonance, this is one of the ways you can get someone into a state of cognitive dissonance where they're going to change their behavior in a positive direction. You show them the data. They say, well, I'm fine. I'm doing well. It's like, well, look, do you really weigh what you want to weigh? It's like, well, not really. Do you really look the way you want to look? Well, as a matter of fact, I don't. Do you really feel the way you want to feel all day? Actually, I don't. Or do you really have the energy you'd like? Only when I drink a lot of caffeine. Do you have any labs to suggest or substantiate this idea that you're healthy? Well, I haven't had labs done in a few years, or I never have had labs done. And, do you really think that your cardiovascular fitness is really all that good? Have you done any vital signs or a VO2 max test, or do you have any HRV data? You get somebody, the average Joe person, into a program with us where we're doing their labs, we're doing their vital signs, we're doing their HRV, we're looking at their Aura Ring data, their fitness tracker data, we're looking at their performance, we're talking about their body composition. These people who have these ideas about what it is to be healthy, they're not where they want to be. And so there's always something else we can do and something else we can tweak. And, Jim and I have our own things that we have to work on and that we have to, focus on. And it's all an iterative process for all of us. But being honest with yourself about that is the first step. And we see so many people who have this wake up call where they thought they were living a healthy life. They thought they were okay. They thought they were doing fine. And then pow, their first heart attack, their first stroke, their first big massive blood clot, their first cancer, their first this, their first that, comes out of nowhere. Yeah.
And it comes down to, we like the Aura Ring, because we can put it in airplane mode. That's why we mainly like it.
Regina
a lot of them
asks, what fitness tracker do you like, or do you just use the Aura Ring? So the answer is the Aura Ring. And we did a great podcast on that a little while ago.
We did. It's if you go into Dr. Stillman or my YouTube, you can go to podcasts and it'll be there. We go into great depth on why we like it so much. And if you can find another fitness tracker that will actually track the data in airplane mode, knock yourself out. I just don't like things broadcasting off people all day. It's just not what I want to do. And that's the thing you've got to understand with people, and back to Roderick a little bit.
On my Aura Ring off.
I will ask people when they come to me and they're being very combative, and I'm like, why are you even here? Like, you came to me for help, and you know everything, obviously. Like, so if you know everything, then why are you here? Like, why don't you just go do your thing? You obviously are having a problem, or you wouldn't have come for me for advice. So that's something we run into a little bit, but I don't run into that much because most people are coming to me because they're seeking out my help, because they've usually, especially when I was in Lexington, I kind of got the reputation of like, oh, you've got a problem no one else can fix, go see Jim Laird. He's annoying as hell, but he'll help you. So
it's not fair to yourself, Jim. Not annoying as hell.
I can be annoying. I try to throw a little humor in there.
Well, when you see a problem in someone's life, you approach it like a pit bull.
I do. I mean, I literally will continue to hammer it until they either move, they either quit, or they submit. One of the two. Like, there's no other option.
And I really have to say, I have yet to see somebody go through this process with Jim and not at the end of the day say, you know what, Jim was right.
Well, and it might eventually. I've had people that trained with me, and I would tell them over and over again, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, like, and they stopped training with me, and they call me back like 6 or 7 years later, and they're like, I hate to say this, but I finally figured out what you've been telling me is what I really needed to do. I just wasn't ready to listen at the time, and that's the truth. A lot of people just aren't ready. Maybe you're not the right messenger, maybe you're not delivering it in the right way. So just don't take that stuff like personally, Roderick. Just educate, be understanding. But I wouldn't like, if people were happy training and they were happy with the results they're getting, but they would complain, and then I would say, well, you're doing this, this, and this, and they're like, no. As long as their complaining didn't become like distractive, I would continue to work with them and educate them. But if the complaining got distractive and it caused problems, then I'd be like, maybe you're not a good fit for me right now. So, but I think the number one thing people need to do as far as mindset is understand that being healthy and being resilient is a decision you make every single day. And if you don't want to like become neurotic about it, but if you start thinking about like, what am I doing today to give my body more resources, to make my body more resilient so I can handle the stress of life? Because we've got so much stress, whether it's toxins, you can get into EMF, you can get into just chronic stress, driving in traffic. I mean, driving in traffic is like, it's like, killing a wild animal. I mean, it's just like you're constantly like, people are honking and swerving, and here in Florida, you'll be driving like 80 miles an hour and somebody will blow by at like 110. Like, it'll be a big truck too, and they'll be like weaving in and out of traffic. You're like,
crazy.
Big monster truck doing 100 miles an hour on the highway. It's like, yeah, that's not going to end well.
Yeah, people in
you gotta talk. You ask yourself these questions like, what am I doing today? Is what I'm doing today going to fill my bathtub up, or is it going to empty the bathtub so that I have enough reserves so that there's a big bucket of water dumped on my bathtub, it doesn't spill over and flood the whole house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
on that note, I think that's enough for today.
I think so. You can use code 50 for 50% off the Fundamentals Wellness course. You can use Jim or Stillman, all caps, for the Fundamentals of Wellness with coaching. Both those links are in the description. And you can also get into our email funnel for our thyroid course that we are releasing at the end of the month.
Yes, come to the webinar. It'll be a really great webinar.
I agree. Have yourself a wonderful day. Get outside, even if it's like raining and stuff.
Even if it's raining and stuff.
Thanks, James. James, we really appreciate you showing up every day and commenting and saying hello. We appreciate that.
We do.
Please like and subscribe, because Lord knows the algorithm does not like us.
No, it does not.
So, and thank you. Well, got all the thank yous. That's awesome. So, that being said, have a wonderful day, everyone. We will see you tomorrow.